Hello and welcome to Fun Food and Games. I'm your host, Roger, and I'm here to go over Infect deck tech with you. We're going to start off with our mana, we're going to work our way through the main board, and we're going to hit up the sideboard. There's a few options in there you can always use to make it your own. This is my own tech on it, and I'd like to see yours in the comments. Let me know what you like, what you dislike, what you'd change, what you'd keep. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So, let's start this off. First off, we have 4 Misty Rainforest to start us off. You're going to have a land where you can sack for 1 life and search your library for a forest or an island and put that thing on the battlefield. Afterwards, shuffle your library. Next up, we have 1 Waterlogged Grove. We've got a land that we can pay 1 life to add a green or a blue to. You can also pay 1 colorless mana, tap it, sacrifice Waterlogged Grove, draw a card. We've also got 4 breeding pools in the deck. It's going to allow our Misty Rainforest to have a good target to go after there. It's a island forest island, I should say. And as breeding pool enters the battlefield, you pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. We've got 1 snow-covered island. Don't need to spend a whole lot of time on that. 2 snow-covered forests. Again, don't need to spend a whole lot of time there. We've got 1 Dryad Arbor, just in case. If we need to fetch something up and the opponent's making us sacrifice something, Dryad Arbor is there. We've got 2 Pendlehavens. These guys will come in handy quite a bit. Take your little 1/1 dork, you make it into a 2/3, and then you can pump it up afterwards. Make sure to do that in the correct order to take advantage. All right, and our man lands. We've got 4 Inkmoth Nexus here, and you can tap it to add a colorless to your mana pool. You can also pay 1. Inkmoth Nexus becomes a 1/1 Blinkmoth artifact creature with flying and infect until the end of turn, and it's still a land. So those are the first 4 infect creatures you're going to have. You're going to need some support, though. So we've got 4 Noble Hierarchs. We've also just got 4 Ignoble Hierarchs that just came out in MH2. Gonna love to see those in some Jund decks coming out. Anyway, Noble Hierarch is 1 green for a 0/1 human druid with Exalted, and whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. You're able to tap Noble Hierarch to give you a green, a white, or a blue. 4 of these in your deck will come in handy. We've also got 2 Blight Mambas in our deck. For a green and a colorless, you've got a snake creature with Infect. Infect, I guess we should have covered this in the beginning. Infect, this creature deals damage in the form of -1/-1 counters to players, to creatures. And if a player gets 4 Infect counters, they lose the game. Blight Mamba is a 1/1. It's also got a 1 green and a colorless to regenerate Blight Mamba. Regeneration comes in handy. We've also got 4 Blighted Agents in the deck. So again, it's a 1/1. It's a blue and a colorless for a human rogue with Infect, and Blighted Agent is unblockable. You don't have a lot of ways to get around creatures in this deck. You don't have any kind of flying, any other really evasion. So Blighted Agent is really a nice thing to have. Just no way to block them. It'll do some work. Now, your best 1-drop in the deck, your Glistener Elf. For 1 green, you get a 1/1 Elf Warrior with Infect. This guy comes on the board. You can technically win the game turn 2. Not much faster than that. If you've got the right cards in hand, you're just going to overrun your opponent before they can do anything. We're also running 2 Ickerclaw Mirrors, just because we want to make sure to have plenty of creatures. One of the problems to get into with this deck is they kill some of your creatures, and you just don't have enough to keep going. And with this, it's a nice way to just make sure you've got plenty of creatures in here. And with Ickerclaw Mirror, the Blighted Agents, the Glistener's Elves, we're really trying to do all that we can. So that allows us a total of 12 Infect creatures. And if you count the man lands, the Inkmoth Nexus, we're technically running 16 Infect creatures. We also have the Noble Hierarch, which you can win the game with, but it can turn into 0/1. you're going to have to do a lot more work to get there with the Noble Hierarch. Just saying. I've seen it done. We've also got 2 Mishra's Baubles in the deck. That's just going to help us get a little bit faster out there. Kind of see what our opponent's drawing into. Kind of gives us an idea of what we should go off on. Maybe even letting us know what we're going to next get. And it's really for 0 mana. It kind of helps you out. Just lets you know what you're looking at possibly next turn. We're also running 2 copies of Spell Pierce in the deck. For 1 blue, it's an instant. Counter target non-creature spell unless it's controlled pays 2. Most of the time in this deck, you're going to have to worry about someone bolting your creature before you can protect it, anything like that. Having Spell Pierce there early game is really going to help you out. We're also running 2 Dismembers. Sometimes you need to clear the way for your Infect guys to get through. Dismember for 1 and 2 Phyrexian mana, which can be paid with either black or 2 life, will let you give a creature -5 until end of turn as an instant. Dismember is honestly one of the stronger cards in the format. I've been a big fan for a long time. We're also running 2 Rankers. This is one of the all-stars of the deck. For 1 green, you get to enchant your creature, and enchant your creature gets +2/+0 and gains trample. And when a Ranker is put into a graveyard from play, return it to its owner's hand. You can't help but love recursion. When you have recursion with Ranker, the kill your creature, it comes back, you play one of your other creatures, put Ranker on it, you're going to keep powering up your creatures. Ranker is a powerhouse in this deck. We're also running 4 Mutagenic Growths in this deck. For 1 green Phyrexian mana, you can either pay a green mana or 2 life. Target creature can get +2/+2 until end of turn. With Mutagenic Growth, Scale Up, and your Glistener Elf, you basically win on turn 2. Like, it's nothing. I mean, that plus any of the other buff spells, you've won the game on turn 2. Speaking of buff spells, we got 2 Might of Old Croesus in here. Yes, got the nice ones here. That's for 1 green, you have an instant that target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and if you cast this during your main phase, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So if you turn 1 Glistener Elf, turn 2 Scale Up, which we're about to come to here in a second, and Might of Old Croesus, your creature is effectively a 10/8, and yeah, it's just game over on turn 2. So as I was saying here, we were just getting to it. We've got our 4 Scale Ups. And Scale Up is a sorcery for 1 green mana. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a green worm with base power and toughness 6/4. It's also got an overload ability for 4 colors and 2 green, where you can give all your creatures base power and toughness of 6/4. Really, you're never going to get to see that much mana in this game. If you do, I don't want to be part of that Infect game that lets you use that much mana. So, next up, just for a little bit of defense in your deck, you need Blossoming Defense. It's a green instant, and for 1 green, target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains hexproof until end of turn. Now, I know you can make so many other cards in this spot. Snakeskin Veil comes to mind. Heroic Intervention. They're all decent cards. However, this gives you a little bit more of a pump than the others, and you generally don't want to deploy your whole board when you're playing Infect. You want to make sure you've got a couple creatures left in your hand, so if your opponent answers those threats, you've got some more ready to go. All right. We've also got 1 copy of Vines of Vastwood for 1 green mana. You've got an instance with a kicker where you pay 1 more green, where a target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. If Vines of Vastwood was kicked, that creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Vines of Vastwood can be really versatile. The problem I find with it is I don't need my creature to be hexproof that much. I need to be able to pump my creature. And to sink 2 mana to give it +4/+4, I really don't find it to be as helpful as some of the other pump spells are. So I run 1 of these in the main board just to... I mean, it can mess with your opponents because, you can play it on one of their creatures to where their creatures can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control this turn. So if they're playing like a core spirit dancer and they're trying to pump it up with all of its roars, guess what? Vines of Vastwood is not going to let that happen. But again, there's other better pump spells. There's other better ways to interact with creatures. But let's move on from there. Last up in the main board, we've got 4 Groundswells. Groundswell is a green instant for 1 green. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And landfall, if you had a land enter the battlefield under your control this turn, that creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. So remember, make sure to play your land, then Groundswell. So that covers our mana base and our main board. All we've got left now to cover is the sideboard. Now then, first up, we've got our graveyard hate. Tormod's Crypt. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. Gotta get rid of that graveyard. Tormod will do the trip. For 0 mana, it's an artifact where you can tap it, sacrifice Tormod's Crypt, and exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Dredge, beware. Running another 2 Spell Pierce again, this time trying to work with those control decks, trying to make sure that nobody else can really take care of our creatures, and if they try to, we've got Spell Pierce. Sorry about the focusing, don't know why it's having so much trouble this second. Next up, we've got 1 Become Immense. Again, you never know what you're going to run into. I don't have any in the main board. I know a lot of people like this card in the main board, however, for the delve cost of it, unless I run up against a mill deck, which now Modern has mill decks quite frequently, Become Immense isn't that great. There's just better, faster cards out there. We're also running 2 Weather the Storm is brought to us from Modern Horizons, and it's a common. For 1 green and 1 colorless, you get an instant where you gain 3 life and Storm. And the Storm mechanic, I honestly had my doubts that it'd ever be brought back, considering the Storm scale, after it was named, kind of made it seem like Storm was a little too strong. However, with the advent of Modern Horizons 2, we're getting Storm. I like Storm. Storm is fun. Storm is good. Weather the Storm, even better. We're also running 2 copies of Spell Sky. For 2 colorless, you get a 0/4 artifact creature that's a horror. And for a blue Phyrexian mana, which can be paid with either blue mana or 2 life, you can change the target of a spell or ability to Spell Sky. Comes in handy every once in a while. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep running this in the sideboard or not. I believe I'm going to upgrade it to Torpor Orb. Just with the advent of all the new evoke creatures that are in MH2, I think that creatures entering the battlefield need to be taken care of way more than this will become relevant. And there's also, as I said recently, Snakeskin Veil is another card that came to mind, which I've got some of that in the sideboard, as we're about to see here in just a moment. And here we are at that moment. Snakeskin Veil. You've got a green instant for 1 green mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn. Now, some of y'all, can say, why do you run this in the sideboard and not in the main board? Put that in, set blossoming defense. It gets a +1/+1 counter that gets to stay on it forever. All valid points. It's just, again, you're going to want to try to get in as much damage as you can for the mana that you can. And usually the one spell that allows you to put +2/+2 or greater on your creature is going to be worth more of your time. So Snakeskin Veil, it comes in handy when you have direct focus hate, like from lightning bolts or anything like that. Otherwise, it doesn't do that much for you. It doesn't give it indestructibility or anything like that. It's just hexproof, in all honesty. So, next up we have 2 Unnatural Predation. It's a green instant for 1 green mana. Target creature gets +1/+1 against trample to end of turn. This is just a little bit of extra evasion in there. Your opponent won't see it coming. They might choose to chump block your creature with a 1/1, and you throw that down, and you're running right over them, and hopefully you kill them on that swing. And to finish it up, we've got 2 Distortion Strikes. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn and is unblockable this turn. It also comes with a Rebound. Rebound is if you cast a spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves at the beginning of your next upkeep. You cast this spell and exile it without paying its mana cost. It's not a bad deal. So anyways, folks, that's the Infect deck. I like it. It plays well. Your opponents might think of it as a villain deck. Saying that, I don't know if I consider too many decks to be hero decks, but this is definitely a villain deck. So anyways, let me know what you think. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. I'd appreciate it.